So I picked up another mini bike because the selection around here is getting mighty thin on mini bikes. And you can always use another mini bike. So it's this MB200 with a 196, and I think it's pretty much stock except for a header pipe, maybe the governor bypassed. So it's got this nice Harley tank on it. Man, I bet this thing has a really good fuel capacity. So we got the air filter. So maybe it has a jet kit in there. I'm not sure. So it's got a different style fender on it. Handlebar risers. But other than that, it looks pretty much stock. But there is one thing I noticed that I'll probably change up right away. Is the chain is super tight on this thing. And I know that the chains loosen and tighten as the swing arm moves. So I was wondering if I could put a chain tensioner on here. So I looked online and there was a video about a chain tensioner. So I got the idea from the video and it looks fairly simple to do. So I got this tubing here at a metal shop in town, but you can find it on eBay. And it's a 5/8 outer diameter with a 3/8 inner. And then a couple 5/8 collars. I mean, you can get the solid collars or the two-piece, either one. And then I picked up this chain tensioner on Amazon. I think it was like 15 bucks or so. Then I cut this rod to, I think it was 9 1/4 inches. And it goes between the bolts on the swing arm here. Let me pull this cover off here, it's easier to see. So you slide the tensioner over the rod. And then you add a collar on both sides. So then once you have the tensioner on there, you slide the rod over these swing arm mounting bolts. And the rod holds the tensioner in place. And then while I'm at it, I'm gonna add a 60 sprocket while I have the chain loose. So before I add the tensioner and the sprocket, I'll take the bike out for a 0-30 and top speed to get a baseline on it. Yeah, might as well get a baseline on this thing so we know where we're at. Zero to 30 stock MB200. All right, let's see what we have here. Seems like the car might be a little dirty. So 4.95, that's not bad for a totally stock motor except for header pipe and a air filter. So let me do a top speed real quick. I think we're already pretty close to top speed. Yeah, I think it's pretty much maxed out. So the MB200 is actually surprisingly quick and fast for just a stock 196. So for the baseline on this bike, a 196, I think the 52 rear sprocket is 4.95, 0 to 30, and 45.38. Okay, so now I'm going to add the chain tensioner and the 60 rear sprocket. Pull this back wheel off of here. Throw this 60 sprocket on here. Stay off with the old, on with the new. Then I might as well pull this chain off of here because I'm gonna have to add a longer chain anyway for the 60 sprocket. So the chain tensioner seems rugged enough, but just to make sure, I think I'm gonna weld this metal onto it just to kind of beef it up a little bit. So now I will install the tensioner itself to the rod and then put the rod on the bike. So now I will throw a collar on here. Then I'll throw a washer on here. I think I'll throw a little grease on there just for the arm to ride on. So now I throw the arm on here. And then a washer, another washer. And then another collar. Yeah, let's kind of snug these collars up because I don't really, like I said, I really don't know how far in this thing goes yet. So now I'll loosen up the mount on the swing arm there and then slide this rod in there. Slide it over the bolt on the other side. up over this bolt on this side. Yeah, I got a nice tight fit going here. All right, so I got it on there. So now I will tighten the bolt here. So I got the rod in there between the two bolts. So now all I have to do is throw a tensioner wheel on here and then line it up with the chain. Put some Loctite on these collar bolts once I figure out exactly where they need to be locked down at. Okay, so that was taking work. All right, so now I'll put the back wheel on here and then line this chain up. Throw this chain on here. All right, so I got the chain pretty much aligned on there and got some play in there. I think I can tighten this thing down here. So I'll tighten it down about right there and then I'll put a spring on it and we'll see how well it holds it up. Okay, got those tightened down. So now I think I'll weld a bracket here and then add a spring, and I think we should be good to go. So instead of welding the metal here where the normal chain guard bracket is, I'm gonna weld it up in here because it's right above the tensioner. So I picked up these springs over at Home Depot. So I think those ought to work. There's my bracket. So I'll drill a small hole here in the tensioner. So I got the spring on there, and it's a pretty beefy spring, but it seems like it needs to be with this big chain, 420 chain. But yeah, I think that'll work. What's cool about it, it seems like it wraps the chain around the sprocket more, which is good. So we'll go test it out. All right, let me go see what this thing will do for top speed first. Because I bet it slowed down a lot with the 60 sprocket. It was actually a 46 sprocket that was on there before. So we went from a 46 to a 60. So this thing is probably really slowed down. Oh, you can tell it slowed it down a lot with a 60 sprocket. The 196 just doesn't rev enough to take advantage of a 60. So 45.38, we'll see if we can beat that. But I highly doubt it. It feels like it only goes into like the 30s or maybe low 40s. I don't know, we'll see. I'm able to hold it wide open even around the corner or around the curve. Yeah, you can definitely tell it's slower. Let's see what it did. 41.91, so it lost a few miles per hour, about 3 miles per hour. I guess that's not too bad. Let's see if it's even quicker from 0 to 30. You would think a bigger sprocket would make it quicker, but I don't know. All right, 0 to 30, 196 with a 60 sprocket. Well, one good thing, the chain hasn't fell off yet. The chain tensioner is working. A 5.46 is actually slower. The 196 just doesn't rev enough to take advantage of a 60, so it actually slowed it down all the way around with the 60 sprocket on a 196. But let me do it one more time just to make sure. Second attempt, 0 to 30. 196 with a 60 sprocket. We did 5.48, so it's in the fives. It definitely lost like a half a second from 0 to 30 with the 60 sprocket. But at least the chain tensioner's working so far. The chain's really loose and it hasn't fell off. So that's nice. A lot easier on the bearings and stuff. So the bike was actually slower on both counts, but the chain tensioner worked. So with the 50 sprocket, with the 196, we did 4.95 and 45.38. Then I added the 60 sprocket, and the bike slowed down to 5.46, about a half a second slower, and 5.48. So at least it's consistent. And then it lost a couple miles per hour, or a few miles per hour, 41.91. So the 196 definitely doesn't have the torque or the RPM capabilities to take advantage of a 60 sprocket, but the chain tensioner worked great. So definitely gonna be a lot easier on the bearings as that swing arm moves up and down through the suspension travel.